Okay. 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 So, today we're watching a video from Ed called "Is Pushing Veganism Offensive?" And let's jump right
Historically,
into it.
right, people have been consuming meat, and it's just been such a part of culture. If we were to promote veganism as a society or as a country, people would take that as an offense to them almost.
Hey everyone, I'm just jumping in very quickly to tell you all about today's sponsor, which is Brilliant. Now, Brilliant is a learning platform where you learn by actually doing, and they have thousands of interactive lessons. Hi Neil, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Ed, and today I'm at UCSD with a banner that says, "Give me your best argument for not being vegan." Just firstly, thank you so much for sitting down. I really appreciate
Okay.
it. But now I suppose I'm interested to know what your response is to the banner.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think most of my diet is already pretty plant-based.
Oh wow, good for you.
I do incorporate, I do have chicken once a day though. And
What? Pretty plant-based and meat every day does not go well together, to be honest. I feel like you could, whatever. That's here.
I just think it's good to, at least for me, with regards to keeping the prices low and everything, it's good to find the balance. But yeah,
Hagmi did not understand capitalism. What? How does he keep the prices low? He buys it every day. What? I don't understand that. When I eat meat, I would eat it twice a week, I think. If you eat meat, it's recommended to only do 180 grams a week, right? From the World Health Organization. And that would be once a week, right? Depending how much, of course, but yeah.
I'd definitely be open to veganism. I think it's really interesting, the potential benefits it has. Right?
Correct.
I think in an effort to fight climate change, it would be a good first step for me just, to do that.
Yeah, you hit on a really important point, which is the sustainability benefits of a plant-based diet, which are so significant and so fantastic. So it's great you're aware of that. But for the purposes of these discussions, what I really like is talking about animals, because I think it creates a bit more of a free-flowing kind of conversation. So do you think that what we do to animals is a moral concern?
Yeah, I think, honestly, this may not sound like the nicest thing, but for me, I'm not living on the farm where I'm witnessing the animal being killed.
Yeah.
I just get the food in the supermarket. So
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You get you don't get the personal feel of having killed an animal when you eat an animal. We're so disassociated with the killing part. And that's why it's super easy for us to actually eat meat if we do so. Because it's completely disassociated. If you were to look, see the animal or something before it gets killed, to know this was the animal that you're eating right now, I feel like it would be a whole different thing. As a first step, of course.
it doesn't really mentally hit me, what's going on.
Out of sight and out of mind, right?
Yeah. But I think, when you consider some of the living conditions they're placed in, right, and the fact that you're breeding an animal to create more future product for you, and then you may eventually separate it from its family. Those are some personal things I wonder, how that may affect the animal individually.
The fuck? What do you mean you wonder how that may affect the person? Obviously it's fucking shit. Just say that's awful. The animals are suffering. You already made the fucking cognitive step of understanding that it's fucking shit. You understand it stood every step of the way. A lot of kids, when they're taught what the meat they're eating is, they don't want it anymore. Not at all, of course. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Good point, AB. Good point. Most people don't actually want to eat meat that much.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing to think about, isn't it? What their experience is. What is it about an animal that means that some of these things we just described are moral concerns?
Personally, I consider the animals living beings, right? And
What do you mean I consider? They are living beings.
it's important to take into consideration that if you want a just and equal society for all humans, maybe why don't consider that same thing for the animals versus
Good point. I agree. Very much so. Yes.
society as well. And yeah, I think overall, also, I mean, even if you're looking from a human perspective, some of the conditions we use in farming for animals, where you have the chickens all cooped up, it affects the livestock which we will consume, right?
I hate that argument. Like, whatever.
So it's maybe not necessarily like beyond veganism per se, but it's overall just like the way animals are treated in this process, which has a ripple effect on us as well.
Yeah. I mean, you're quite right to point out that there is far-reaching consequences, isn't there? Sometimes we don't think about it. We think about things in kind of isolated terms. But when we recognize that there is this kind of sequence of events that affects animals, the planet, but also just kind of like societal health in general, an inability to empathize with non-human animals, I think, is a scary thing for our society. If someone has no compassion towards the other species we share this planet with, I think that's a worrying sign. So I think
I agree, and I feel like it's a lot easier if we were to live in a world where, for example, racism didn't exist, I feel like it would be a lot easier to make the mental step next up to also respect other species, such as animals, to not eat them anymore, etc. But I feel like we're currently so far away from these steps with the current racism movement everywhere. That's a step to veganism, is an even further one, but I feel like those that do have the energy to make those steps, those should be making those steps to set a good example and see that it's very, very possible to do so, and make sure that you do not participate in animal suffering as much as you can.
you're right, there are far-reaching consequences that go beyond just the actual, the actual meat product itself and what that, directly means for those who are harmed in the process. Okay, with that in mind then, I guess the reason I asked that question about what is it about animals was to establish, that they are, as you say, living beings, conscious beings having subjective experiences. So, they can feel and suffer, experience stress, all of these things that create what we would call a subjectivity in their experience. Like you and I have subjective, individualistic experiences, as do they. And so with that in mind, one of the reasons why I'm vegan primarily is with the idea that if I can try to reduce the suffering and harm that I cause to others, then that seems like the right thing to do. So in the case of animals, do you think that reducing animal suffering is morally the right thing to do?
Clearly, there's no way you can say that is not the moral right thing to do. You can say, yes, it's too hard for me and I don't want to do the morally right thing, but clearly, reducing animal suffering to a minimum is the morally correct thing to do, and there's no reason you can justify harm to animals just because you're hungry, or because it tastes good, or because you grew up on it, or because of random ass traditions. I don't give a shit, homie. Just do it.
I personally do, but then again, I don't think I'm in a position to outright say that that is the right thing to do. This.
Yes, you are in a position like that because you are human with individual experience and an individual opinion. But regarding morals, to just say, I don't wanna harm anyone, it does not hurt anyone, because clearly that is the opinion that does not harm anyone, as it already states in the initial statement. So everyone is in a position to come out things that are morally wrong and do things that are morally right. I don't understand.
Maybe just be my personal opinion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's take an example. It's a relatively on-the-nose example. Let's say that a dog or a cat is walking past now, and one of the members of the audience here decides they want to kick that dog. Now, you and I might think, well, personally, that's immoral.
Yeah.
But is it also just bad?
Yeah, I mean, it was a conversation I had in my AP psychology class.
Oh, yeah.
The difference between ethics and morals. I think, I consider it immoral, and as I think many people here would also consider it immoral. But I also believe that attacking an animal is also illegal, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, once you draw up the code of ethics that people have all agreed up to, then it's your job to live up to that. So I think with regards to some of the animal cruelty stuff that's happening, if it's not legally defined, I personally don't think that you can outright call it bad. It may just be like a moral.
The fuck? Okay, whatever. That makes no sense. It just absolutely dodged the question, or did I just completely misunderstand him? Nah, it's just bad, period. Everyone that does it should be punished accordingly. And, even if we have things that are not defined by law, they can still be morally wrong. Regardless of the law does not define morals. Period. I agree with you. It's not illegal argument, it's really stupid. It pisses me off.
Thing.
But does legality and ethics or morality, do they go hand in hand? Does legality equal morality?
Clearly fucking not. If it did, then holy shit, all those billionaires would be in jail and not rich.
Yeah, definitely not, not necessarily, right? We had the civil rights movement, and we saw that, so many times our laws may not be exactly what we want to achieve as a society. So I think, I think with the laws, it's something we can all agree upon and I guess live up to. But you should continue to challenge them and push forward to what you believe in and what stands right with you.
Unless it's what you believe in, because you clearly don't want to when you just confronted with someone kicking a random animal close to you. You said it's not illegal kind of thing, so I don't know about your point here, tell me.
You morally?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have to look beyond laws. Yeah, like you say, and like see what we stand for morally. And I guess with the dog, let's say that action did happen. We wouldn't say it's wrong because it's illegal. It's illegal because it's wrong, but it's not wrong because it's illegal. Like it wasn't okay when before it was illegal. You know what I mean? And so, whilst we may say that like what we do to animals in like farms and such is legal, that doesn't mean that it's okay simply because it's legal. And it doesn't mean that it's not bad just because it's legal. So something can be bad regardless of legal status. And so the reason I suppose I asked about kind of like the kicking of the dog being bad was to establish.
That's a very good point. Like, you also gotta consider till like 1840-ish, we had no animal rights at all, like no animal protection laws, etc. You could do anything to anyone and it wouldn't be hunted by law in any regards. So, yeah. Whenever it's legality equals moral, it doesn't equate to right or wrong. Good point, yeah. There's instances where, of course, legality or illegality can be online with morals, but that's very rarely, especially considering that law is usually behind by quite a lot.
That outside of our own kind of like personal perspective, there is kind of something that defines it as being bad outside of that, because obviously people's views of what's good and bad can vary, and someone who has an inability to empathize and is maybe a little bit sociopathic or psychopathic might not think that causing harm to another human is bad, but their personal feeling about it doesn't change the fact that it is bad.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's just like, my favorite example is when for example something awful happens, like some kind of murder to like a child or something. Then people often ask for the fucking murderer to be punished by death or something like that, or whatever kind of thing, like something super awful. And even though lots of people tend to agree with it, does not make it morally right. They should still be punished by our normal law without breaking morals yourself, else the breaking of morals never ends.
And so whilst it's great that we both agree on it, I don't think that means that it's okay if someone disagrees with us and thinks it is okay. Because I think we should view what happens from the position of those who have been harmed, because it's a moral issue, you know. There are many examples, of course. So I'm not really sure what the question is from that, but more just to say, do you agree that issues of morality should be viewed from that of the victim rather than the oppressor?
Yeah,
100% yes. Always, actually.
I mean, that's definitely a really interesting question. And honestly, I don't really have an answer for that, at least not yet. I think I have to get some more life experience, just think about that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look,
What do you mean life experience? If the oppressor was to choose, they would just find loopholes to just make it like it's so stupid. Oh my god, there was such a shitty answer. It's sorry, I don't think I could follow you and I want to keep eating meat and I know I'm wrong, that I can't really state that here. Please let me be. Please leave me alone. I'm not comfortable with this interview anymore.
maybe we're speaking past each other a little bit. So I just want to clarify what I'm trying to refer to, what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that when we view issues of morality and we think of justifications for those issues, we don't normally think of the opinion of the oppressor as being important when deciding the morality of something. What I'm trying to say is the opinion of the oppressor valid? Or is the important element of this dynamic the fact that there is a victim who is suffering as a consequence? An animal who isn't willfully presenting their throat to the slaughterman, an animal who has been mutilated against their will. To me, I would say that it's their experience that's more important than the opinion of the person who is benefiting from that victimization or, that harm that's been caused. That's the point I was trying to make.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
What do you think?
And yeah,
But Ed just rephrased what he said before and just tried to make the person here understand what Ed was saying in the first place, right? Now the person agrees and says it makes sense. Interesting.
yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that. Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
I think it's
What do you mean for the most part? There's nothing disagreeable here. Let's be fucking real. If this was talking about I don't know, your mom being oppressed instead of animals, you would be like, fuck you.
a little difficult in the case of animals. I'm not sure how you could measure suffering.
You don't need to measure suffering. There's either suffering or no suffering, and we should aim for no suffering. You don't need to aim maximum suffering and then lower the amount of suffering. Just go for no suffering. What the fuck?
For them, whereas with the humans, you had the verbal kind of, you can hear for them. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting you say that, but we still can't quantify it. We still can't measure it. I could stab you and you could say, that really hurts, but I have no idea how much you're suffering compared to me. So we actually don't know how much each other suffers. And it's the same with animals. Sure, we don't know how intense that experience is compared to our own. Could be worse, could be less severe. But we do know that they vocalize. They try to escape. And even those animals who can't, vocalize, like fish, for example, they have a biological response much similar to our own, a release of hormones, a change in respiratory rates, dilation of the pupils, erratic behaviors. There are things that happen that we also demonstrate in situations like anxiety or fear or suffering and pain, which we can see within them. So whilst we can't grade it, we know that there is an experience that is occurring and that experience is negative. And so that's all that's really relevant. That's
Exactly, that's all that's really relevant. Someone is suffering for any kind of reason. We should avoid that at any cost. Especially when it's mass suffering, such as animals in these situations, like Guatemala.
what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with what you're saying here. And if we can measure a level of suffering, then we do have to question, the actions we're taking towards this being.
Yeah.
And is this the right thing to do as a society?
Yeah. Do you think it's the right thing for us to do as a society?
Yeah, it's tough to think about that because historically, right, before time or BC, right, people have been consuming meat and it's just been such a part of culture. I think under that thing, people would consider that if we were to promote veganism as a society or as a country, maybe even make it a law. I mean, it might be a little extreme, but people would take that as an offense to them almost, right? So
Okay, let's listen to the end.
you do have that in mind, But you do have to, ask yourselves, like, the current practices we're doing right now that may be causing harm that we don't want to be doing in our society.
Not may, it does cause harm. You know it does cause harm. You agree to it. Not may, it does, period. And we already know how to avoid this harm easily. There's no may or what if. It is a thing that is happening already. Stop, whatever.
And so people have to have these conversations just like, as a society, what is the right thing to do moving forward?
I mean, yeah, you're so right, isn't it? Culture and history really drives our behaviours, doesn't it? But sometimes we have to look beyond that. Because all culture is really in traditions. All they are practices and behaviours that we've done for a long time. And I guess the follow-up question to that is something moral or acceptable simply because it's happened for a long time?
Yeah, what kind of question says obviously not? Clearly not. I'm not blaming Ed because clearly that is what the guy on the left was arguing about, so it's a good point to bring up, but these guys are arguing skills for real? Yeah, it's just like, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't, not necessarily.
Sure.
Right.
Not necessarily. No. Period. Something can be good that we did for a long time, regardless if we did it a long time. The question was, is something good just because wait, let me...
Is something moral or acceptable simply because it's happened for a long time?
Yeah, is something moral because it happened for a long time? No, period. There can be things that we did for a long time that are also moral, but that can never be the only and sole reason. Just because it went on for a long time can never be the only reason, ever. It's a simple question to answer, really simple actually.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't, not necessarily.
Sure.
And this is the most stupidest answer ever. Not necessarily. The answer is no. This guy's just always answering vague. He never said yes or no. He always said yes, partly. Yes, I agree in some parts. No, not really. And kind of stuff like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a fairly obvious one.
Yeah.
It's just important to say it, nonetheless. And so with that in mind, I guess, obviously there's a long history of us eating animals, a long history of us eating animals. That aside, is that relevant now? If we can choose to do something that our ancestors couldn't choose, then regardless of what position they found themselves in, all that matters is the position that we find ourselves in. And for us, if it's a choice, then we have the choice between choosing to cause suffering or choosing to reduce suffering. And I suppose if it is a choice, then why would we choose to be unnecessarily cruel?
Yeah. I mean, you brought up racism, right? And I think sometimes people can just draw it up to culture, this is what we've done for so many years, this is how it's been, I'm not comfortable with the change.
Yeah.
So, I think...
He's almost there, guys. Basically, Howard gave the argument to where he can only agree with it, but he's gonna in the end say something to diminish the argument slightly, to be like, yeah, we should probably do that, instead of, yes, I agree with you. He's gonna minimize it in some way. Trust me, I predict it.
I don't know. So I was gonna say, once I came up here, I personally agree with veganism, and I think it's overall a much healthier way to live than, I guess, a lot of the standard American kind of diets right now. I think that it'll take time to implement, though, and it'll happen over time, but I think you'll see much, much higher rates of veganism over, say, in 2100 versus now.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Hopefully.
It's something that people, just especially in the younger generation, recognize as something that is immoral and also just better
Yeah, except you, I guess.
for the entire world, the ecosystem, the animals, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you're right that we're going to see it continue to grow and people beginning to recognize the merits of it. I won't keep you for too much longer because I know your friends are here waiting as well. But, interestingly for you wanting to work in tech, cell cultured meat is a big thing that's going to be, hopefully a game changer in the future. And so, yeah, I strongly believe as well, like you do, that things are going to move forward, hopefully quickly. And I suppose with that in mind, a question to kind of bring us slowly towards the end really would be to say, if we recognize that change is inevitable, why not be a part of that change?
No, I just like eating meat, and I feel like, money-wise, it's not affordable, or, I think I could do that, and, random ass excuse next, so.
Yeah, I agree. And it's definitely something like I've thought about.
Do it.
Previous, like I didn't really understand I guess I kind of just washed away veganism. I thought it was a very extreme kind of thing. And I still consume dairy and egg products, but I think about just meat and it does have an impact, and I think
No shit, it has an impact. What the fuck? In the beginning, you said talked about the environmental impacts. Ed didn't even talk about it. You knew that all by yourself, so why not?
like you said, right, it's cruel to animals, and if we have an opportunity to change, why not do it now? I think people are rooted in their habits, and it's gonna take time to happen, but just taking that first step and trying it out, you'll eventually see that it's a little bit easier to implement than I think cooking the meat personally.
Yeah.
But also it's just, you feel better knowing that you're having a positive contribution to the overall ecosystem.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that sounds like the sort of thing I would say to someone. It's so true. It's I think it's about recognizing that there is this benefit that we can be a part of, and this change that we can be a part of. And I suppose we've spoken a bit about meat, and there's a wasp. We've spoken a little bit about meat, obviously. And okay, good. I was trying to be very vegan then, and so obviously we spoke about meat. Do you think that
That's so funny. What the fuck?
the same concerns we've discussed, health concerns, environmental concerns, but also moral concerns, are they found in dairy and eggs as well?
Yeah, I think if you look at how the chickens are farmed, right, I'd say those are immoral, especially with the way cows are treated for milk. Yeah, I agree, it's immoral.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, well, we've kind of gone in a really nice direction where we've discussed a multitude of different things, and we've reached kind of this point of commonality where we broadly agree that what we're doing to animals is immoral, change is inevitable, and we can be a part of that change. And then again, it's just about being accountable. Saying, right, okay, I can do it now. I need to put my I need to walk the walk, and hold myself accountable to do that, and recognise that it's good to be able to do something that we agree is the right thing to do in the context of what's currently happening in our world, and being a part of something that we recognise is beneficial for change.
That's for me the most important part, right? Like, if you as a person, as an individual, recognize something is wrong, something is not going right, you should, in my opinion, always be able to fight against it and do your best to fight it. That's also like let's say you're in a friend group with friends and someone is making some kind of racist joke or whatever. I feel like you should always call them out, and even in small situations, do the morally right thing and act accordingly. That's a moral I live by. 'Cause that's how I can be happy with myself and know I did.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
I really appreciate the time, and I really appreciate you coming to sit down with me and for being so humble and honest. And thank you.
Definitely.
Have you got a phone, a piece of
And-
paper, anything that I can just jot some stuff down?
Check out your YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. I'll write that down for you as well. Amazing. So nice to meet you.
Nice
Have
to
a
meet you as
wonderful
well.
life, my friend.
You too.
Take it easy.
Very good video. Thank you, Earthling Ed. You make great content and I love what